Take a look at this map of the world. Here is Austria, and right next to it is Germany. At the exact location of this red dot, on April 20th, 1889, a child was born. He had a perfectly normal dream, to grow up, move to Vienna, and paint watercolor buildings. He wouldn't do that. He'd do something else entirely. So, to understand this guy, we've got to start with his dad. Alois Hitler, a mid-level Austrian customs officer. Not a rich man, but his lack of money never seemed to slow down his romantic life, which is how he ended up with 3 wives. Adolf was the product of this man and his 3rd wife, a much younger Clara, his niece, who he'd originally hired to care for his ailing 2nd wife. And somewhere between changing the bedsheets and making the soup, she ended up, well, pregnant. Now, because they were so closely related, Alois actually had to petition the Pope for special permission to legally wed her. He got the approval and married her. They had 4 kids together, but somehow the first 3 didn't make it past childhood, which left little Adolf as a sole survivor at the time, and Mom spoiled him absolutely rotten. He'd later have 1 more younger brother and a younger sister. As a kid, Hitler attended a public elementary school and made a very good impression on the principal, who described him as a docile, though sometimes hyperactive child. Around this time, though, the family hit some financial hardships, and Alois, a strict father who rarely smiled, turned the house into a ticking time bomb, taking his money frustrations out on Adolf through constant yelling and physical abuse. In his early years, he sang in the church choir and actually dreamed of becoming a priest. But the major turning point hit when his younger brother died of measles, and the tragedy hit hard. The once energetic boy went cold, withdrawn, rebellious, undisciplined, grades off a cliff. Alois was furious. "You're going to be a government official like me." "No, I am meant for greatness. I will go to Vienna, paint timeless masterpieces, and become the greatest artist alive." And just like that, the relationship was shattered. In fact, purely to spite his Austrian government-employed dad, Hitler became a fanatic for German nationalism. Alois was furious, but too old and weak to do much about it. And not long after, he was gone. So, in 1907, living off his mother's allowance, Hitler moved to Vienna to chase art school, and failed the entrance exam. Honestly, if those examiners had just been a little more generous with their grading, the world would have been spared a massive catastrophe. The final crushing blow came when his mother died of breast cancer in December 1907. The doctor who tenderly cared for his mother in her final days, the man Hitler personally sent a heartfelt thank you card to after she passed, was Dr. Edward Bloch, a Jewish man. So now, with no support and nowhere to go, he ended up on the streets, begging at soup kitchens, doing odd jobs, whatever it took, before eventually drifting into painting watercolor landscapes to sell to tourists. And his skills genuinely improved. Critics said his work was as precise as a photograph, though utterly cold and soulless, which led him to suggest he was better suited for architecture than art. Yeah, he did eventually become an architect, just designing something infinitely more horrific. Now, nobody knows exactly when the seeds of his anti-Semitism took root. Could you share exactly when your anti-Semitic mindset began to form? F*** you. He wasn't talking, but historians will. His vagabond years in Vienna, a city run by an extreme nationalist mayor steeped into anti-Semitic rhetoric, molded his twisted mind. Okay, so in 1913, Hitler faked an illness to dodge the Austro-Hungarian military draft.
Okay.
He was Austrian, but he wanted nothing to do with Austria's army. Basically, he thought his homeland's military was a mixed-race mess. Completely garbage. So he bolted straight to Munich, Germany. Then, August 1914, World War I broke out. And here's the irony. This supposedly sickly young man who refused to serve in Austria's army immediately and enthusiastically volunteered for the German one. And the crazy part, amidst the muddy, bloody, brutal battlefield, he wasn't scared at all. He considered it his life's purpose, the greatest time of his life. Fighting recklessly, miraculously escaping death over and over, he won the Iron Cross, an unthinkable achievement for a lowly corporal. And the superior officer who saw his potential and recommended him for that medal? Hugo Gutmann, a Jewish man. And just a few years later, the soldier Hugo elevated would sign orders to wipe out his entire community from the earth. Anyway, in October 1916, Hitler was wounded by a bomb and sent back to Germany to recover. And while he was there, he was absolutely disgusted by the anti-war protests held by pacifists, swearing he'd kill them all one day. Once he healed, Hitler returned to the front, then got temporarily blinded by a British gas attack in 1918. And while he's lying in a hospital bed rubbing his eyes, Germany surrenders. Now, with an ego the size of Europe, he absolutely refused to accept that the German army had actually lost. No, it had to be someone else's fault. So, his paranoid brain invented an explanation. We were stabbed in the back by communists, by Jews, at home. In reality, Germany's defeat had nothing to do with communism or the Jewish people. They were simply exhausted from years of war. And more importantly, when the US entered, Germany got completely overwhelmed by American military might. But hey, one tiny detail. What does Germany winning or losing have to do with you? You're Austrian. I am f***ing German. And that was the story he told himself for the rest of his life. So, after the war, the three victorious nations were the US, Britain, and France. And as the loser, Germany got slapped with the brutal Treaty of Versailles, stripped of its territory, disarmed, forced to shrink its army, and handed a massive $33 billion war reparations bill as a treat. Back in Munich in 1919, with no education and no real skills, he landed a gig as an army informant. See, the unfair terms of the treaty had left the German people deeply unhappy with their government, and the political scene was fractured. The government was terrified of these radical splinter groups, so Hitler got assigned to spy on them, especially the communists. They sent him to investigate a dangerously named little group, the German Workers' Party. He showed up expecting to shut them down, but when he got there, he was like, wait, these guys hate Jews and are crazy about nationalism? They're exactly my kind of people. This party was exactly his vibe. So, instead of being a spy, Hitler ditched the mission and joined, became member 555, which sounds impressive until you find out that the party started numbering at 500 to seem less pathetic. Meaning the actual membership was only about 54 people, fewer than a high school chess club. And yet, this was the seed of an empire that would kill 85 million people. With his brilliant rhetoric and masterful psychological manipulation, he shot straight to the top in the blink of an eye. Completely rebranded the whole thing, renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis for short, gave it a striking new color scheme and a symbol people still recognize on sight for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, Germany at this point had fallen into a severe crisis. See, to pay the war reparations, the government just printed more money, which sparked catastrophic hyperinflation. In 1919, one US dollar was worth about 4.5 German marks. By 1923, that same dollar would get you 4.2 trillion marks. Picture this. You walk out to buy a loaf of bread for a few bucks in the morning, and by the afternoon, the price has skyrocketed to 200 billion. Cash became so worthless, it was literal garbage. Starving citizens could push a whole wheelbarrow of money and still not afford enough food to survive. People were literally burning banknotes for heat because the paper was worth more as fuel than as currency. And Hitler noticed. Of course he did. He launched massive propaganda campaigns to pull in supporters, promising to restore Germany to its former glory, celebrate Aryan supremacy, and blame everything on the Jews. And to protect his rallies and intimidate his rivals, he formed his own private army, the Stormtroopers, the SA. Now, conveniently, the Treaty of Versailles had forced Germany to downsize its military, leaving countless German soldiers unemployed, so with no other options, they flocked to the Stormtroopers, and its numbers exploded. So, in November 1923, riding high on his own ego, Hitler walked into a beer hall in Munich and launched a coup to overthrow the government. The police did not join him. How'd that go? Not great.